Hello, my name is Kunbi Oshinoiki, co-founder and CEO of Kumbi's Music Company, or KMC. We are a music education services company located in Lagos in Nigeria, serving clients across the globe. Many parents, especially Nigerian parents, have the misconception that allowing children to play a musical instrument would jeopardize the child's academic success, thereby limiting their life chances. Some parents believe that music is for layabouts or non-academically minded children who cannot cope with the rigors of maths or sciences. As a music educator who takes a keen interest in the neuroscience behind music learning, I couldn't disagree more. Plenty of research and empirical evidence would suggest that learning to play a musical instrument to a high standard contributes significantly to academic success. Joining me in conversation today are two Nigerian parents, one who lives in Nigeria and the other who lives in the UK, whose children have achieved significant academic success and who attribute this in a large part to their music learning. Zoke Acha is a dear friend and former classmate at Queen's College, Lagos, Nigeria. We lost touch over several decades, but recently got back in touch. Zoke has 3 daughters, all of whom are accomplished musicians and all of whom are academic scholars. Kwame Adadevo is also a dear friend from my days at Obafemi Awolowo University. His son recently got fantastic A-level results and will be starting university in the United Kingdom, just like his daughter. Thank you very much, both of you, for accepting my invitation. And so I'm going to start with our first question, which is, what led you to embarking on music lessons for your children? And I think if Zoke would like to answer that first, and then we'll go on to Kwame.
Well, really, I always planned to have music and start music lessons early with my children. But I think Kumbi, you can take credit for that one, because back when we were in secondary school together, I was very, very inspired by your piano playing, your discipline, your exams, and just generally how your family behaved about music. You took it really, really seriously. I just thought, gosh, this is scary. And you also did, quite well academically as well. So I didn't equate the two together. I just liked the whole idea of playing beautifully and producing beautiful music. And you were, to me, you were the epitome of that in school.
Wow. I didn't know this. Wow. Okay. And what about you, Kwame? What made you start on music lessons for your children?
It was more, how do I put it? It was more of my wife's idea. And the main reason was because she grew up with music lessons and stuff like that in her. I mean, I also did, but I think that clearly from her side, it was more, what's the word to use? It was better planned and it was more structured because they had teachers who were coming in. I did music only in school, but she had music teachers at home and all of that, and she wanted that for the children as well. And we had a discussion about it, and we bought into it. She also then explained how music helped with a number of things, rational thoughts, and also how to structure arguments and things. So being the lawyer that I am, I think the argument part of it won it for me, and I agreed with it and went along.
Okay. And how old were the children when they first started taking lessons?
So there's 18 months between them. Selinam was 6, a little over 6, and Frederick was a little over 4 at the time.
Okay.
So
and what about
you can imagine how tough.
Yeah, quite. And you, okay? How old were your girls when they started?
Well, they all started at 3. My first actually wanted to play a different instrument from the one that's currently her principal instrument. But she first heard the horn. She heard Mozart's horn concertos on radio when we were driving, and she desperately wanted to play that. She was about 2.5 then, not quite 3. She was 2, and she just kept saying, "Oh, it's crying. It sounds so sad." It was a movement in the concert. She said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's actually a French horn." And she said, "Oh, I'd like to play that." And then she said, "Oh, it's gone blue now, and it's gone green now. It's a yellow. It's a bit pink." I didn't understand what she was talking about then, but it was later on that I figured out that she was probably talking about a change in key. But she's one of those people that sees music in colors.
Yes.
So it was every time it changed the piece changed key, she started commenting on that, and then she started commenting on other pieces as well, in terms of colors. And I thought, oh my goodness, okay, there must be something here. So 2.5 was obviously too young to start playing the horn. So I thought, why don't we start with something that's an instrument that she can handle, that's that could grow with her, and if she grew bigger, then we could get a bigger sound. And we thought, why don't we start on a string instrument, like probably the violin. So her very first violin was, I think it was a 1/16, I think. It was really really tiny. And we started using a method that was really child friendly, that encouraged you to do a lot of listening, and then encourage you to play by to listen and try and repeat, and then so they really developed the listening, and it encouraged you to just play by ear at first, because obviously at 3, most 3-year-olds are not can't read, chocolate to read music. So that really developed her ear, and it helped. It also developed memory as well, because she was with the method, which is called the Suzuki method. It encourages a lot of, in the early stage, encourages a lot of listening and a lot of trying to play by repeating what you hear. And it developed her memory, and starting with my twins, because I've got twins that are 12. My first I'm talking about is 15. And yeah, I noticed it really helps with their memory as well. And they would, by the time they were 8, 9, 7, in some cases, they could play whole concerto memory. And they could just, and it just came, it was second nature to them. They would just play, they were just used to listening. And now and that developed quite early. They could hear it, they would repeat it, just from hearing it. I mean, they're fantastic sight readers now, and they play in orchestras and various orchestras. But anyway, the long and short of it, I also noticed that it had impact on their learning, their academic learning as well, because it's the same part of the brain that is proved that the same part of the brain that's used for music is used for maths, and so they're all quite advanced in mathematics.
That's good.
Yeah, and in anything that requires memorizing, they are fantastic with that. And there's a lot of discipline that comes with it. So yes, the first instruments, back to your original question, yeah, they started at 3.
Okay.
And the instruments were string instruments, violin for 2 of mine, and then cello for the third.
Okay. And what about you, Kwame? What instruments did the children start on?
They both started off with the piano. But before I go further into that, I was just going to make another point. What Zoke was saying. It seems, I don't know if there's been any study on it, but it seems like music does help children with the sciences, mainly maths and physics, because both of us did very well, both at GCSEs and at the A levels in math and and physics. It's both. I think both of them got A stars in maths, and I think it's too much to say that it's a coincidence. It obviously was. There's something in there. So, but they both started off with the piano, and then they both play the piano, even though Frederick plays more now. But then Selena moved on into the cello and the flute, but still much stronger on the piano. Frederick has done a bit of the guitar, the rhythm guitar, but his favorite is still the piano.
And how did they respond to lessons at the beginning, and how has this changed over time? Kwame.
Okay. At the beginning, it was strangely, Selena was more receptive. Obviously, she was older. She was a bit older. She was more receptive at the time, and then Frederick was a bit of a struggle. And they both had what's the word to use now? They both had an easy catch up on it, at the beginning, even though we did have to do a bit more work to get Frederick to take his lessons seriously. But it was as if it was a natural thing for them. They picked up, and then their initial piano teacher was one who taught them classicals and then also a lot of contemporary stuff. So by the time Frederick was 6 and they were doing the World Cup, they were holding the World Cup in South Africa, which was in 2010, he could play even without looking at the notes. He could play the song that was made popular by what's her name, the Colombian singer,
Shakira.
Shakira, yes. He could play that with his eyes closed, and
he picked that out himself. Yeah, on the piano.
Yeah, he picked that out. He picked that out himself, and then he started off doing that by himself, and then his teacher then put it down in notes for him, so it helped him. But yeah, Selenum was, how do I put it now? Selenum was far better. Obviously, she was older and she had a bit more material to work with than he did at the time. But then over time, her zeal started to wane off a bit. By the time she got into GCSE classes, music had taken second place, which is strange because it's the other way around for Frederick. By the time he got into GCSEs, he then became more focused on music, and even without supervision. I mean, just before your involvement in the training was I think just before his GCSEs.
Yes, it was.
And he was, how easy it was to get him to do some things, even though at the beginning he was a bit of a headache for the teachers. But yeah, so it was
something clicked along the way, and he became hungry for it. Yeah,
it's the hunger. I mean, the teachers in his A-level class talk about the fact that sometimes, because Frederick was very popular in the school, and
I'm not surprised.
Sometimes they would be walking and talking to Frederick, and then there'll be maybe a crowd of 4 of them, and the next thing they know, they could hear the piano from a distance, and it was Frederick playing the piano, but he was just here talking to us.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. What about you, Zoke? How did the girls take to lessons initially, and how did that change over time?
Well, they took to it very, very well, like ducks to water, and I think that was primarily because of the method that they started on. It was very, very child friendly, and they were learning without knowing they were learning. So for them, it was always fun. And there were lots of courses that we went on, and it was always made fun. It was just geared towards, young children, or children and attention at that age, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Attention span is not always, it's not, they're not firing on all cylinders, attention wise, but very motivated. And you know, it was a matter that we took from the method, which is that you practice only on the days you eat. So there would have been times when they said, "Oh no, we don't really want to practice." And I say, that day you don't have to really practice what you eat, which was and I know is every day. So think about it. At 3 years, 4 years old, they'll be thinking the days we eat, but that's every day. I'm like, okay. So to them, it's like practicing is because they started really, really, really young, and we had established a practice pattern that you practice every day, not for very long, a little and often. You didn't have to be. And practicing would involve listening as well. There's a lot of listening to classical music, listening to all genres of good music. It didn't necessarily have to just be classical music, but as long as music was good, we'll listen to everything, and the different periods of music as well.
So practice wasn't always them sitting on the violins, playing away the violin. They just had to engage with music for a concentrated period of time.
Well, practice was always on the instrument, but I also would have. I didn't feel that practice was complete unless they were, listening to music as well. And it's also this was part and parcel of the methods that we were using. They encouraged. There's a lot of listening that's encouraged, so that we would listen, and they didn't necessarily have to sit down to listen. Could have music in the car while we're on the way back from school, or it could be in the background as they're doing their homework. But they would the music, and that still goes on. I mean, they're currently in the kitchen now.
So they had to have supplementary.
Yeah, music playing. Yeah, so there was always music, different types of music playing, but a lot of the music wouldn't be. I mean, the key thing was listening to good quality music, played well, regardless of what kind of music it was. But a lot of time their repertoire, the repertoire that they were planning to work on, or the repertoire they aspired to, was playing, would have that, playing in the background. And that encouraged them to want to do better. It developed their listening, developed their memory skills as well, not just music, but in everything. And we could apply that to almost everything every aspect of their life. So music was not just music for music's sake. It was very, for us, it's all encompassing. It was just part and parcel of our lives, and it's you wouldn't think of getting up in the morning and leaving without leaving the house, leaving your tea. And for them, they would not think of leaving the house now, and they're 15 and 12. They wouldn't think of leaving the house.
What kind of
practice? In the initial stages, I would practice. I would sit down because they were really little, 3, 4. Sit down with them, and I used to sit in and so I could help them with their practice. And indeed, teachers encourage you to do that because it's empowered you to help them with the practice. But as they grew older, it's sort of changed. Now I have 3 of them are at 2 of them are at music academies on Saturday, and one of them is at a junior conservatoire, starting junior conservatoire this September. And they're independent learners, and they practice independently, and they don't need me there. But I find that they call me in and say, "Mommy, what do you think? Do you want to listen to your opinion on what you think? How much I improved on this?" I'm not a musician. I have to point that out. I'm not a musician myself, but I've been very, very involved in their journey. Lovely to see how they've transitioned from being very dependent as little children to being independent learners practices, and it's for me it's a thing of joy.
And how many years do you think you gave them that close supervision and close support, from when they started to becoming independent? How long were you actively involved?
Well, actively involved, probably about for my first, who is now 15, probably about 6, 7 years. I would attend her lessons. I would engage with her teacher. And I have to tell you, I have to remind you that with the method that they were using,
This was encouraged. Yeah.
this was encouraged. It was actually not just encouraged; it was mandatory. The parent had to go. And I thought, oh, I have to go to work. What is this? But we had lessons around weekends when I was, when it wasn't working, and they encouraged one to be the primary supporter. Both parents could be, but for the continuity, they preferred one parent. And so I was a primary supporter for all three of them, working full time and with very, very pressure. Yeah, but we still managed to pull it off. But by the time they're 9, 10, they did not need me at all.
Okay.
Really, they just needed me to just listen and just critique what they were playing. And I still do that. I mean, they're 12, and 15, and I still do that. Just, manage. I don't know how I do it. I manage to have, while they're practicing, usually they're practicing at the same time, but in different rooms, and I can hear all of them at the same time, and I can pick out areas I think need improvement. And so, but they usually run out and say, "Mommy, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" Especially they think they've done something really spectacular. And of course, I was encouraged. And then start with encouragement, and then tell them afterwards the things that I think they need to spend a bit more time on. And that's
Okay.
how we still,
Yeah.
that's how we still roll, as Gen V would say.
Interesting. What about you, Kwame? What did practice look like in your house, and how much of an involvement did you or their mum have in their practice when they were little, and how has that changed over time?
Frozen. I don't know if that's on my
Okay.
end.
No, I can see you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Practice was a struggle. Well, not that much of a struggle at the beginning. So what we started to do, what Molara and I started to do, was to then ask because we had a teacher.
Oh, it's frozen.
Yeah, it's frozen now. Yeah.
Like we were taking lessons as well, so that would encourage them to listen.
Sorry,
and
can I just interrupt, Kwame? We lost you where you said we had a teacher. You froze for a bit.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. If you
Okay,
just
so
go
I
for
was
that
saying
again.
that yeah, so we had a teacher who used to come in on different days for each of them. And what we used to do was one parent, we used to alternate. So either myself or Malara would be with Selenum or Frederick, depending on what day it was. And that helped them to see that, okay, look, it wasn't some kind of punishment. It was something that even our parents found to be fun. So that helped.
Yes. So so between the two of you, always made sure that somebody was present and engaged in the lessons. Yeah. I think that's very important. The number of children who feel that music lessons, especially, are a form of punishment or torture from their parents,
yeah. I mean, so we worked out that system, and it helped. It helped a lot at the beginning.
Okay. And how did you know if they were practicing correctly when they didn't have the teacher and they were just at home on their instrument? How did you have any way of knowing if they were doing the right thing?
So what we used to do.
I mean, sorry to cut it. I'm just going to say that presumably neither you or your wife are active musicians.
No, neither one of us is an active musician, so we couldn't read the notes or anything like that ourselves. But because we had sat in for the lessons, we somehow used to recall what notes would go and the sequence and all of that. So that helped also. I mean, so it also was good for us because it helped us also with a lot of retentive memory things and also being able to focus. So it was beneficial to the children and also to us.
Wow, interesting. Interesting that you have that.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what was the impact that music learning had on their lives generally beyond just having the lessons? How would you say that they're,
Are you asking me to go
having,
or is it okay?
yeah, no, you go and then we'll go to okay.
Okay, so I think that it's helped them be able to socialize in certain respects, and also help them to, like I said earlier on, it helped with the academics, especially with the sciences. And I think that it helped because it helped them to be able to structure things. So when you're reading the notes and you know what comes after what, and you know why it comes, because that was one of the things that the teachers always used to explain to them, that look, you need to understand the why, so it helps you to know what comes next, because then you're thinking of it logically. So it helped them be able to form and make arguments, and also be able to read and understand a lot of the other academic work.
Interesting. And what about you, okay?
I mean, I want to second everything that Hannah said. It's the same with here in our family as well. I think it's helped them immensely with the discipline. I cannot stress the discipline that playing an instrument and practicing and brings on. It helps you, and you can apply it right across every aspect of your life, not just academics. And I just want to add to what Kwame said. You could apply it to, and we certainly have applied it to everything we do. It has brought structure, it has brought discipline, it has brought the love of learning, and not just learning for learning's sake as well. I mean, they've done and they continue to do very, very, very well academically. And
Am I right in saying that your girls are math scholars? Is that right?
yeah, well, they're academic scholars.
Academic scholars, okay.
They're academic and music scholars.
Okay.
And recently, my 15-year-old, who's in she's going to year 11 this September. But she took her, she's taking some of her GCSEs early. She had the GCSE music early, a year early, and she had got a 9 in that. And
Wow.
she's you have heard her screaming last week when the results came out. And she's also going to do maths early.
Wow.
Now, it's not me. She's in maths in November, October, November.
Okay.
This is supposed to
This year.
next. And this is not us saying, oh, you need to do this. Teachers identifying that, look, she would be bored stiff because she's ready to do this. So let her do this. And she can start her A levels early.
Wow.
Her A levels in math, and she moved to a new school last year, and she'd never done further before. She started further maths, and when she absolutely loves maths and physics, and she's mad about all things. I'm talking about and she started further maths, and after a term of being of further maths, she was already top of the class in further maths, and that was just a term. And I personally attribute it to the discipline of starting a musical instrument early. She plays 4 musical instruments, but she now she's getting older. She's dropped 1 because obviously she has GCSE to contend with and lots of other things to contend with. But she needed to really focus, and she just plays the violin, viola, and piano now. But she used to play the horn, which we got years ago. And is focusing on those 3. But it's the discipline that comes from music. she's just applied it to everything as well. I mean, you don't have to tell her to do her homework, and she comes and a totally independent learner comes back and she just applies her practice, the principles of music practice, which she started quite early before she even started school, which was she's applying that throughout her life. And because she's the first, the twins, my twins were 12 years, 12-year-old twins, look at her and they look up to her and they want to
emulate her
and do the things that she's doing.
Yeah.
And so, a really good role model for them. And I put that down to starting music early and good music practice, and music discipline.
Okay, thank you. I've got two more questions for you. First of all, for both of you, what advice would you give to parents who are thinking of embarking on this journey? That's the first question. The second one is that knowing what you know now, what would you do differently? Okay, as a music parent, if you're going to start all over again. Kwame.
Okay, so first question. What would I tell parents? Do it. Get into it as early as possible. Go and find the money and do it. And I emphasize on go and find the money because, I mean, okay, so when we started, we used to go to, when they had a lesson, I think the first couple of lessons, they used to go to my parents-in-law's place where they had a piano. And so I think by the third lesson, I just said to Mola, you know what, let's just make the investment. And so we bought a piano, and so they used to play at home. And it wasn't just because of the lessons, also because we thought, look, they need to practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can't just say to the children, even though at the time we lived very close, we were still in Surulere, we were in Alaka, and my parents-in-law are in Bode Thomas, so it wasn't that much of a drive, but even then, I mean, it was still, knowing Lagos, I mean, sometimes it could take you an hour in between. And so we just said, you know what, bite the bullet, make the investment. And so we got a piano, and that's what I would say to any parent. And because musical instruments and the lessons they don't come that cheap.
No.
So it has to be something that they need to ready to make the sacrifice and recognize that you will see the results in your children's lives, because like Zoke added discipline to what they live a structured life. They're focused, there's discipline, and it matures them faster than anything. I mean, Frederick and Salanam today they'll be talking music history, and they talk about how Tchaikovsky and Frederick's personal favorites is Beethoven, and talk about how they came up with this song and this tune and this piece. And I'm thinking, okay, I mean, I studied history, but they didn't teach us this part of history. So, I mean, if I was to talk to any parent, bite the bullet, make the sacrifice. You will be happy, because at the end of the day, what you want is you want to have children who become adults who are responsible, who are mature, and who you can look back through the years and think, yeah, we did a good job here.
And what would you do differently if you're starting
again? What would
again?
I do differently? I would start them earlier. And I would also, because kids are kids, and kids are like sponges, so the earlier you start them on something, the more it sticks. And what that does is, over time, it becomes a part of their lives. And what I would also do is we would have started them earlier on more than one instrument. It would be tough, because even though they're sponges, they're also kids, and being able to manage so many things may be difficult. But you see, when you start them earlier, the discipline of being able to do so many other things helps with work. So you're able to you're able to micromanage and also multitask and do so many things.
Because life is busy, right?
Life is busy. I mean, hey,
Life
look,
is busy. Yeah.
I mean, Kumbi, you studied something definitely not anything near education. So,
Economics. Yeah. Yeah.
so here we are.
Yeah.
I studied law, went ahead and got how many more degrees in law, and here I am. I'm putting brick and mortar together to build houses and roads.
Yeah. What about you, Zoki? What advice would you give to parents who are thinking of taking on this journey, and what would you do differently if you started again?
I would advise them to actually be committed as well. As so committed time-wise. I don't believe that you should that music is just something that you do to tick a box. It's we take music as seriously in my household as seriously as I know Nigerians tend to take academics, what they consider to be academic subjects. I would say you need to give your full commitment to it, because then you would reap the rewards. So it's not enough to just drop them off at lessons and then pick them up and then drop them off for the next lesson, and then maybe say or remind them to practice. Get involved. You need to be hugely committed towards towards it. It's the rewards, as Connor said. I mean, it lasts a lifetime.
They do.
I listen to my kids, play, and I mean, they play in various orchestras. They have their own, string quartet with their cousin who plays cello as well, and they make such. One of my first daughter writes the music for the quartet, and they play a street party, the Queen's Jubilee. They arrange all the music for that, and they arrange the Queen's. God Save the Queen, and and Jerusalem, and lots of other really popular pieces, and they just do that because they love music, and it's in this day and age with the distraction of devices and social media and all that. I'm not saying that my kids don't use social media or don't use devices or don't play games. They do, but they do it in moderation. And for them, it's this is more rewarding for them. The music is more rewarding, and in age with all that's going on in our world, you really want you pray that you're producing children that would be on the straight, keep your children on the straight and narrow. So if they find that, and that outlet is so rewarding and keeps them in check, it's happy days. It's a win-win all around. What would I do differently if I were to start it all over again? I think I would start a music instrument before I had my children. I can tell you that because I tried picking up the cello. It's never too late to learn an instrument, but I tried picking up the cello because my first two play violin, and not my first two, my first and my third play violin, but my second, that's the first twin, plays cello, and she started, like I said, they all started at 3, and because I had the experience of sitting with lessons with violin. For my first, I was better able to support my second violin player, but for my cellist, she was also supporting. After some time, I just started practicing in the night. By the time 3-4 months down the line, she had totally left me in the dark. We both started at the same time.
Wow.
But they still have, all 3 of them still have huge respect for me. They know I'm a non-musical mom, and they have huge respect. So I still tell them where they've gone wrong, even though I cannot play, like they can play.
Well, how did you develop that skill? How is it? What did you learn to do that just by listening, or how do you how can you?
It goes back to the point I made about commitment. I've been being a committed parent you have to be invested, and being invested, you would, if you're invested in anything, you would take a huge interest, and you don't want anything to go wrong. You want to try, you want it to be a success. So you would, I listen, when I listen to the pieces, I listen with them. I would just say, oh, put on that piece and listen. We're all listening together. We'll hum along together. And I know most parents have busy working lives. They're all, both my husband and I, at the time when they first started, we were both in really pressured jobs, but we still found the time to do that, because we both recognized that for them to take that interest and to make it their own, they had to understand and know and be comfortable in the knowledge that we were with them all the way, and we're rooting for them all the way. And certainly from in the initial stages, they need that support when they're really young. They're looking to you for the they're looking to you for you're their role model. You're their
for the validation. Yeah.
You're effectively their first teacher. Their first teachers in everything. So we had to be invested, and that is what we did. So if I was to do it over again, I would start an instrument early, and
for yourself. Yes.
For myself.
Yes.
Because I think I would have been probably more on the ball when they were just initially starting out. We were all learning together. Was when they were 3. We all started instruments together, and I was, my cellist. I was trying to figure out things with her. I would have started earlier, I think. So if you have the opportunity, as to actually plan your child, people sit down and plan everything from to when they're, which university they want their child to, which secondary schools they want to go, which exams they want them to take, and which subjects and what career they want. People do that. So they just treat music the same and do that. That's probably what I would have done. I would advise parents to do, and that's what I do.
Okay. We mentioned exams now, and it just got me thinking, was it always your intention for your children to take music exams?
My intention,
or did that just happen as a matter of course?
Sorry, do you want me to answer that, or do you want Kwame to answer that?
Was it? Oh, okay. I said, was it always your intention for your children to take music exams?
No, I think she heard you. She was asking if
Did you
wanted
hear that?
her to go first, or me to go first.
Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah, Kwame, you go first, and then we'll finish with them. Okay.
So
yeah,
it was. The intention was for them to. Yes, it was at the beginning. We wanted them to do the ABRSM, and also the reason for that was because we always knew they were going to move from Nigeria to the UK, and we knew that for them to be able to continue that, they would need those certificates to show for them to, so that it would show what level they were at for their music teachers over there. In Lagos, we didn't have that challenge. That what's the word to use now? We didn't have that foundation in the music class in their schools here, but over there we knew that they would need for that, because if you were going to get into whatever class you were going to get into and you were going to start music, it would help the instructors there to know what level you are at and where to take up from. So we always planned that. Yes.
Yeah. And you, Zaki?
Initially it was for us, it was about the music. Initially, I wanted my children initially to sound like you. Because I just remembered your piano played in school, and I thought, if my kids can sound like Kumbi, my work here is done. But as time went on, I could see, of course, the importance of them taking those exams, because it's a way of people in music, or in the music industry, teachers or the conservatoires or orchestras or ensembles, knowing where to place you, and knowing at what level you're playing at. Now, a lot of them might not necessarily require what they would tell you. They would not specifically ask for an exam, a graded exam, but they would expect you to play at a grade level for certain things.
At that standard.
At that standard.
At that standard.
Yeah, for depending on what you're applying for. But also it also gives them something to work. It focuses them and gives them something to work towards. And if you have a goal that you're working towards, you don't get sidetracked, and you're kept on your toes, And so yes, eventually we started doing the exams. We are slightly different from that they were not doing a method when they first started that required exams, but eventually they transitioned over to the traditional method. As they grew older, they moved over to traditional ABRS, and they take exams. And I'm pleased they do extremely well in the exams. I encourage parents to take these exams because it gives the kids something to work towards, and it focuses them and it goal. And when they achieve what they achieve, they're very proud of themselves, and it's an incentive for them to want to actually do more and do better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just that in Nigeria, we need to find the balance between the exams and everything else, because sometimes we focus on the exams to the detriment of building their skill set. And so the children are just taken from one exam to another, and they don't learn, they're not versatile in anything else. It's like they're cramming. You understand me? So they're taught to cram 3 pieces for this grade, and they can't play anything else at that level, So yeah, balance is necessary.
Could I just say that for me,
yes,
for us, it was more important for them to play and play beautifully. The exam was just something for them.
A rubber stamp. It was
it was more important for me. I mean, my first daughter's first violin exam. I mean, she did the piano exams earlier, but her first violin exam she took it when she was I think she was 10, 11. It was her very first violin exam. But she'd been playing since she was 3, and her first exam was actually grade 7. And but because of the discipline she got a very high distinction. But her first, because she'd been playing consistently and constantly since she was 3, it wasn't a chore. She didn't have to cram. She didn't have to, naturally. Yeah. And that's another thing I need to add.
Yeah.
A little but often. It doesn't have to be, you hear people playing, 6 hours of practice. I'm not discouraging that or encouraging that, but I think it's better for you to do targeted, consistent, and constant practice. People ask me, how often a day do your children practice to be able to play like that? And I say, well, it depends. And, I actually think I'm being coy, but it's not that. They just do a little and often, and they do as much or as little practice that they need to do, depending on what they need to do it for. But the thing that's consistent is that they do it unfailingly every day, only on the days they eat.
Every day.
I cannot emphasize enough, apart from individual practice, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of group practice as well. If you could encourage your children to play in, ensembles, and rather, small ensembles, big ensembles, orchestras, it develops more than just their musical skills. They develop the ability to listen to each other, to work in a team, to work with others, to listen to others, and then respond accordingly. And those skills are so integral and and transferable anywhere and in anything. And in the kind of global melting pot. You know, the world is turning into. Their skills that would stand them in really good stead. So apart from the individual practice, as much ensemble practice as possible. That is another thing I would advise.
Thank you. On that note, I'd like to say thank you so much to Kwame and Zoke for your time, for sharing your experiences as music parents and the successes of your children. Love what you guys have done. Love your philosophy, your mindset, and long may your children give you reason to make them proud. Yeah. So thank you so much, both of you.
Amen. Thank you, Kobe.